Okay, and welcome back to another episode of the Cedric Black podcast. And I am happy to be back because last episode my voice was gone. Well, it had been gone, but it was on the upswing of returning back to normal. So it's better now. Because that, like I mentioned in my previous episode, I had some bug that I get. It's like a 48 hour, it's not a stomach problem, but it's just my throat and my voice just goes. I think that it's a change in the weather that happens because it happens every year, and it only lasts for 2 days. But last episode, you could hear it in my voice that it was really a struggle for me to get things out, to project the way that it needed to project. But I'm better now. I'm not 100%, but I am a lot better. My voice feels stronger, and the struggle is not there as much as it was last episode. So welcome back to another episode again. And the podcast is called the Cedric Black Podcast, and this is where we talk about topics that impact our daily lives, and that topic is noise pollution in the way that it impacts our mental health and our emotional well-being. So I'm happy to be back with you, and I'm even more thrilled that you guys are here, that you've come back to explore this crucial aspect that's been often overlooked. That's always overlooked, in my opinion. That's always overlooked by many of us, by many people that have never even heard the term noise pollution, or those that don't even know what noise pollution means. So this connection between noise pollution and our mental health is something that we overlook. And what I want to do in my goal for having this podcast and for bringing you these episodes is to shed light on these things that we're unfamiliar with. My goal is to just bring some awareness to the community, to listeners, to whoever may be unaware of noise pollution, whoever may be unaware of the term noise pollution and what that means and what it does to our mental well-being. So in today's episode, we're going to take a closer look at how noise pollution affects different segments of our population. I'm staying on track with what noise pollution is, but I just wanted to add a different element to it for this episode. Because I want to make you aware of these different areas of our population that are affected. And we don't know. We are unaware of how it affects these populations, and they may not know either. But I'm confident that they have some idea. Noise is often dismissed as a minor inconvenience for us. But the thing about it is, we may think it's a minor inconvenience, but it has far-reaching implications on our mental health, far more than what we may not fully understand. So grab your headphones, or wherever you may be listening, in your car or your home computer, laptop, and join me as we continue to navigate through this significant ways noise influences our mental and emotional states. But before we jump into the topics, as I do with every episode, I want to talk briefly to summarize noise pollution and what it is, because I do this mainly for first-time listeners, because if you're a first-time listener who may not be familiar with the term, I will start every episode by just giving you a brief introduction to what noise pollution is. Because it's more than just sounds. It is an invisible force that creeps into our everyday lives. It affects stress levels, our concentration, and overall, our mental health. It really does. You think about the never-ending traffic that we experience every day. And it's not just the term traffic. I'm talking about the different models, sizes, and styles of cars, vans, SUVs, trucks, 18-wheelers, buses. And you combine that together and you think about how loud some trucks are. And you think about certain trucks that have big tires or big mufflers that sound really loud. And 18-wheeler trucks are already loud. And city buses are loud. School buses are loud. And you combine that, put all that together, and think about all these different noises that our brain is constantly trying to pick apart, trying to decipher what these sounds are and place them in certain compartments in our mind so our ears can better utilize the space that we've been given to hear things. And I'm just talking about traffic. That's just one thing in the city where you live. Just think about the traffic. And not only is it just the city sounds on the city streets of traffic, but it's also the constant hum of electronic devices and appliances in our homes. Noise pollution has become pretty much our everyday companion because it's with us everywhere we go. Every direction we turn, we are hearing and we are faced with noise. I want to touch base on the specifics, just the specifics of noise, because there's a broader impact of noise pollution. And again, it's more than just sounds. It's an invisible force. That's a critical term. It's invisible because we don't see it, we hear it. But here's the best part. I'm not just talking about noise in general today. Today, we're sort of honing in on how certain groups that are often more vulnerable to sound, and they're the ones that's bearing a more heavier burden. So our focus today, 3 groups: children, our senior citizens, and individuals with pre-existing health conditions. In my opinion, these groups face unique challenges when it comes to noise, and it's critical in finding solutions that can make a difference in their lives. So stick around for the next 15 to 20 minutes as we just unravel the layers of this important topic. It's important enough to bring to you week in and week out. And if you are either following this podcast or you may see some of my social media things, I do this every week. The podcast is every week. I also have a vlog that I do from outside. I'm usually driving in my car and I'm talking about noise pollution and how it affects things. So I'm bringing you these topics to make you aware, to give you an understanding of something that you may overlook. And it's about the impact of those who might be more sensitive to its effects. this week. This is where we are. So get ready to hopefully gain some insights that could reshape the way that we view and address noise pollution in our own communities. I wanted to start with the most sensitive, I believe, and that is our children. Children are the core group because their brains are always developing. They're like sponges. They absorb everything that's around them. I used to hear for many years that if you wanted to teach your child a new language, like Spanish, any other language other than English, or whatever their native tongue is, start at a young age, like 2 years old, and they pick it up easy. Because if that's their environment, they learn it quicker. A child's brain is like a sponge. It absorbs everything. That's great as far as learning. But unfortunately, this also includes the constant noise in our noisy world. Exposure to high levels of noise during their formative years, it may have lasting effects on how their brains develop. It could. I believe so, because these aren't my facts that I'm speaking. I'm speaking from the facts that I gained from studies. Studies have shown this. This information is easy to find with a Google search. So think of it like this. It's like planting seeds. The noise can potentially affect their ability to concentrate and learn, and also in a negative way, shape their cognitive growth in ways that we might not fully understand yet. The research and the study is ongoing, but we are still learning and trying to, not me as we, but researchers and scientists are still researching and experimenting, trying to figure things out. So we'll come back to our children, but just to give you an overall picture of what this episode is, we'll shift our attention briefly to the senior adults, the elderly. Imagine living in a world where the background noise is not just background anymore. For our senior citizens, noise can be added stress on top of adapting to an ever-changing world around them. And when you add noise in the mix, I can see where that could be stressful, because it can make communicating something so simple, communicating their daily communication can become a little bit more challenging. The constant buzz and clatter of noise can easily contribute to an environment that's not so friendly for their overall well-being. We all want to live in peace. We all want to have a peaceful world, a peaceful environment. Every direction that we live in our lives, we want the peace. It's like trying to have a conversation in a crowded room. The effort increases, but the enjoyment of the conversation decreases. You have to speak louder to get a response. I had this situation come up, and I'll speak about it in one of my vlogs. My wife and I went out to dinner, and it was so loud in the restaurant, and that noise was being made by another couple sitting a few tables away. And the restaurant wasn't that crowded. There was only 6 people there at the time. But the reflections of the sound, they were speaking loud. I don't understand, because they were sitting so close to each other, but it just bounced around the entire restaurant, and it was so noisy that they had to be asked to speak softer, to speak quieter. So I can relate to trying to have a conversation, because when my wife would say something to me, I had to lean in and ask her to repeat it again, and I had to lean my ear closer so she can repeat it to me. I definitely did not like that. That was not good. So I can imagine what a senior citizen could feel like if they have tried to have a conversation and their effort constantly increases. The enjoyment of it is definitely going to decrease. Okay, let's look at those that are already dealing with health conditions. Noise pollution itself can be a game changer. Because now it's not just about the annoyance of noise. It's about how the noise can make existing health issues worse. Whether it's a heart problem, someone may have difficulty sleeping, or they may have other mental health concerns. If this is the case, then the amount of noise in their surroundings, in our surroundings, can in some way act as a trigger. And what that does, that makes an already uphill battle a bit steeper for them. So picture it like this: trying to balance on a wobbly surface, and the noise adds an extra layer of difficulty to a situation that's already a challenge in itself. It's like adding more on your plate when your plate is already full. Now you add something else on top, and you're trying to balance that. So what we want to do is peel back the layers to understand why these groups may be vulnerable to the effects of noise. Because it's not just about what we hear, it's about how it impacts those who might be more sensitive to these noisy nuances that fill our world. I know that's a bit much, and the more we understand, the better grasp we will have on noise pollution. Let's talk a little bit again about our kids, our younger generation. Research has shown that the constant hum of our surroundings can and does have a tangible effect on children's mental health in some way. And again, and I'll keep stressing this point, it's not just about the noise being bothersome. It can potentially impact their mood and their behavior. Imagine it like this, like ripples in a pond. When I was a kid, we called them waves. If you throw a rock and you see the waves rippling out, imagine the ripples in the pond. And noise can create little subtle but lasting effects on how children navigate their emotions. As adults, most of us anyway, we have a better way to deal with our emotions. Some of us deal with them in negative ways, but for the most part, and again, it's just my opinion, we can deal with emotions better than children because children aren't equipped. They haven't been taught to deal with their emotions, so they act out. Well, we act out also in some ways. They don't know how to deal with that. So let's make it more relatable. So I'm talking about their behavior now. That's probably something more that we can get a hold on. Have you ever noticed that how loud an environment is can sometimes make kids a bit more restless and irritable in some way? And there might be a connection. And again, studies suggest that exposure to high levels of noise could be linked to their behavioral issues. Sort of like a puzzle piece. The noise fits into the picture of their behavior. In some way, it's influencing the ways that they act. If you're a parent who has kids, or if you're a teacher, an educator, who are around children every day, you may see this. It's probably something that they deal with every day. So if you picture a classroom or a home environment where noise is constantly the companion of a child, you could probably understand the day-to-day challenges and different shifts that may happen in their behavior. I'm not speaking as someone who's a child psychologist or a therapist or a mental health professional in any way. I'm speaking from facts that I've learned from researchers and also people that I've spoken with. I have a friend who's a therapist. He's a child therapist. I think he has a different title, but that's what it is. Hopefully one day I can have him on the show as a guest and we can dive a little bit deeper into children and their behavior and how it's connected to noise. It's not so much about the numbers and the studies. It's about the lived experiences in those of us who have raised kids or are raising kids and educating this next generation. Because their little small minds are still growing and developing in the midst of this noisy world. It's not just about the noise. It's about understanding how it plays a role in shaping the well-being of our young people. I'm just thinking about it because we always say the children are our future. That's something that's a term that I've heard since I was a child, since I was a kid. And I believe that that's true. But if they are our future, there's something that we have to pay more attention to because they're surrounded by the same noises that we are, but it could affect them in different ways than what it affects us. Okay, so now let's take a closer look at how noise could affect our older generation. Scientists are saying that all the noise around us may make it harder for older people to think clearly. It's not just about hearing the noise. There's a bigger picture because it could actually be connected to their minds not working as well. It's like the noise itself is making it a little bit trickier for them to remember things and to stay sharp. I'm not even a senior, but I can relate to that because when I'm trying to concentrate on something, if it's noisy, I can't. I lose thought, I lose my place. But it's not just about thinking. It's also about talk. With all the noise, it can be tough for them to have a good conversation. We mentioned this earlier. It's like being in a crowded room where it's hard to hear what somebody's saying. Just like my restaurant example. And for some of them, this could make them feel a little bit alone and not so connected to other people. Put yourself in their world if you can. If you're not a senior, if you're a younger person, just imagine trying to have a conversation, but it's like the words get lost in the noise. You say something, and all the noise that's around it just grabs the word, and now it's gone, and you're trying to get it back, or it's in the middle of everything else. You can't really hear it as much without hearing everything else. So one way to understand it better, I encourage you, also, I challenge you, but I do encourage you to have a sit down chat with an elderly person that you might know, whether it be a friend or a family member. Ask them to tell you what it's really like living in a world where it's sometimes too noisy for them. Because it's not just about the facts, the big picture. It's about the experiences of the people who have been around a bit longer. It's definitely another way to uncover how noise can make them feel a bit more challenged because they're the ones who've been around, who've seen a lot more in life. It's not just about the noise. It's about how it can affect their minds and their connections. Finally, let's look at the noise impact on people who are dealing with health issues. I get my information from scientists and researchers. So scientists are finding out that noise around us can actually make things tougher for people who already aren't feeling good, aren't feeling their best. Because it's not just about hearing the noise. The bigger picture is that it may make their health issues even worse. Imagine it like the noise adding an extra layer of difficulty for someone who is already dealing with health challenges. To make it more real, think about your heart. Now, the noise can make it beat faster. If it's a shotgun blast or a cannon, that's definitely going to happen. If it's a car crash outside of a wreck, our heart's going to beat faster because we weren't expecting that sound. And for me or someone with a healthy heart, it may be okay. We may just say, oh man, wow, that scared me. But that's not good for someone with heart problems. Okay? Or consider trying to get a good night's sleep if you're someone who suffers from insomnia or other health conditions that prevent you from sleeping. Noise can make it tricky because we all know that a lack of sleep, not getting enough sleep at night, can make our health conditions even harder to manage. For some people, it could cause increased health conditions that they already have. Their sleep is important. If you're a person that lives next to a train or a railway in some way, that's even worse because I've been in houses people who live next to trains, and you can't really talk. You just have to wait it out. Wait until the train passes. Imagine that happening at night if you're trying to sleep. One more example is, let's think about our minds. Too much noise can make it tougher for someone who already is dealing with mental health issues in some way. These are facts that I've gathered, but let's just not talk facts though. Let's look at strategies, the same strategy that I mentioned about our older adults. Let's use the same strategy. Sit down and talk with someone who you may know that's dealing with health issues. I think we all know someone who has some issue that they're dealing with. Ask them to share with you the effects, how noise affects them personally. You may be surprised by what they say, because it's not about the science of it. The big picture is, for them, it's about the real struggles that they face every day. So, as we wrap up this episode and our exploration into this fascinating world of noise pollution and its impact on the vulnerable groups, our children, our elderly, and those with pre-existing health conditions, let's sort of bring together or summarize, recap what hopefully we are able to take away, or something that we learned about these groups. So for our kids, the little ones, it's not just about noise being a nuisance. It's also the ability of that noise to shape how they feel and how they behave. And our senior adults that are facing challenges in clear thinking and communication, they have to navigate a world where noise can make them feel a bit isolated sometimes. And for those already dealing with health issues, the noise becomes an additional hurdle because they already have other issues. Now you add noise in the mix. There's something else for them to deal with. Now let's look at a couple of quick solutions. I wrote these solutions down so I didn't forget what they could be. It's simple. It's nothing that I'm creating solutions. These are just simple things, ideas that we could look at. because it's not about eliminating the noise altogether. That's really impossible. We can't just eliminate noise. It's here to stay. But we can find ways to make our environment friendlier for these groups of people that we've been talking about this episode. Simple things like creating quiet zones in our schools and other public spaces, or using noise canceling devices for our senior adults. These things can make a difference. And also, community awareness campaigns can also play a role in fostering a culture of respect for these group of people. But it's not just about what can be done on a broader scale. It's also about personal choices. If we have the means, or if you have the means, you could consider investing in simple things like noise canceling headphones. I use them all the time and they work. Let's not forget the support from local initiatives that advocate for quieter environments. If we don't have that initiative, we can create an initiative. I feel like this podcast is an initiative to bring that awareness, to shed light on what's going on. And it helps spread that awareness among all of us, our friends, families, co-workers, everyone, because all of us are affected. So for my listeners, I want to hear from you. I want you to share your experiences, any suggestions or questions about noise pollution and its impact on mental health. Because I believe that all of us together, because numbers do matter, I believe that all of us together, with all of us, we can build a community that understands and addresses these challenges. It's not too late. I think any time is the right time for anything that's helpful for the greater good for all of us. Thank you for joining in on this journey through the quieter side of life, right? Until next time, stay tuned, stay engaged, and let's work together to create a world where everyone, regardless of vulnerability, can enjoy a more peaceful and mentally healthy environment.